Multifamilies, and what I'm calling the tale of two multis. Now, in Portland, Maine, we know that rent control came into effect about a year ago. And what has been the impact of that? Now, we were worried about that in the real estate community, and the numbers that we're going to see now bore out that is founded for many of our clients and negatively affected their sales value and significantly affected their sales value in a negative way. So, but it is an interesting component of this as we dove further than just the headlines to figure out which segments of the market were most affected. So when we look at median sale price increase overall for all multifamilies from 2 units and up, we saw a 15% increase in values, in sale prices, between $585,020 to $670,000 in 2021. So again, you've got about nearly $100,000 increase if I'm an average multifamily owner, if I kept that property 1 year, right? Which is pretty darn cool. The median sale price per unit increase. So this is another way. Think of that condominium owner, right? But if you think of, hey, I've got a 6-unit building, here's my average price per unit. It went from in 2020, $215,000 up to $257,000. Now, just like with any segment of the market, where you are, what you're selling, all of these things, how updated it is, has a big impact on where you are on that continuum. Are you at the $250, or you're at $300 per unit, or you're at $200 per unit? So again, reach out to us. We can help you determine exactly how your property compares versus just using blanket numbers. But what I wanted to do is take those numbers on the global sense, looking at all of them, and knowing the year that I came off from and talking with all the team members in Benchmark's team, we saw a significant difference between the values we were getting per unit for smaller buildings, these 2 to 4 unit, potentially more owner-occupied properties, than we were for the more investment style properties of that 5 or over. For example, 2 to 4 units increased, the number of units increased, the number of sales increased by 45%. The number of sales for 5 or more units increased by 20%. Still a big number, but less than half, right? So we have a lot more 2 to 4 unit sales. So if you go back to 2020 and before, so we looked at the data from 2020 all the way back from the time Maria's collected data, right? And that's probably about a 20-year window. In that time frame, there's only been 2 to 4 families that sold for $1 million or more. Last year, there were 21 units that sold in Portland, 2 to 4 units for $1 million or more. It's incredible. That represents a 425% increase, right? When you look at the sales of 5 or more, right, the numbers that sold there over $1 million, that actually decreased by 6%. So clearly, we are seeing the effects of rent control. We're seeing the effects of sellers who potentially, prior to rent control, may have owned their property for some period of time, may have kept their rents low. A new buyer going into that is not going to pay on what the potential rent is because rent control is capping that. They're paying on the current rent and knowing that those rents can only go up a little bit per year. So devastating effects of rent control on folks that owned bigger units and potentially units that were not keeping up with market rents. When I look at 2022, I look at a very hot market. I look at repeating the past of 2021. I expect our spring market to be the strongest it has ever been and values to continue to increase. I do expect, however, once again, the seasonality of this. So come July 4th, I think things are going to soften, then they'll pick back up again in the fall. We see no major correction. We will be looking at things like the Federal Reserve's actions and interest rates because those can certainly have an impact. But as of right now, my forecast for 22 is very rosy, especially if you're a buyer. Very rosy, especially if you're a seller, and a bit challenging if you're a buyer. For complete information on this and more information and data than you would want me to spew on about, you can go on to benchmarkmaine.com and visit the blog page. We have also on our website broken down in each one of these segments the report that's related to that. So if you own a condominium, you can go right to your report, but find all that information at benchmarkmaine.com.